Genarlow is the pronunciation I'm going to go with, is the first name. Wilson is the last name. Wilson, I think I've got nailed. He's a kid in Georgia. He's 20 now. He was 17 at the time of his so-called crime. His crime was the atrocious act of hooking up with a 15-year-old girl. So he was 17 at the time. He was a senior in high school. She was a sophomore. Then I'm guilty. When I was a senior, I hooked up with several sophomores. He apparently had the crime of committing oral sex with her. I wish I was guilty of that when I was a senior and I was going out with the sophomore girls. It was on videotape at a party that they were at. Apparently, Georgia has this old law on its books saying that if you have sex with a woman that you're not separated by 3 years from, even if you're underage, if she's under the age of 16, it's a misdemeanor if you have sex with her. But it's a felony if you have oral sex with her. Okay, which is even more perverted, which is even crazier. Later, after this case, Georgia legislature actually realized how absurd that was, and they changed the law so that now oral sex is also a misdemeanor as well. By the way, they should have changed it so none of it's a goddamn misdemeanor. Anyway, or a crime. But so they changed it so that it's a misdemeanor, but they purposely didn't make it retroactive so Genarlow Wilson could stay in jail. You know what he got? He got 10 years. The legislature refused to change it, make it retroactive. The Georgia Supreme Court refused to hear the case. No one has allowed this guy even a hearing on this other than his original trial, where he was flabbergasted. He couldn't believe what was happening to him. He got 10 years without the possibility of parole. And when he gets out, he'll be labeled a sex offender, and he won't even be allowed to live with his 8-year-old sister. He's going to have to find a new home if he ever gets out. 8 years from now. God, what has this country come to? But as it stands, here's this kid who's a 17-year-old who had a 3.2 GPA, who got a letter from Columbia saying they'd like him to play football for him. He was a star athlete as well as being very good in school, had never had any trouble with the law before, is sitting in a state penitentiary in Georgia. Oh, did I forget to mention he's black? But that probably has nothing to do with it. I know in the state of Georgia, I'm sure that if he was a white kid with a 3.2 GPA who was going to go to an Ivy League school and had this great career and slept with a sophomore or got oral sex from a sophomore, I'm sure he would have faced the same exact punishment. I'm positive.
There's a long history of fair treatment of black people in Georgia courts, and we just have to go with that, Jake.
Yeah. Coincidentally, and I know it's probably a gigantic coincidence, the 4 Supreme Court justices that ruled against Genarlow were white. The 3 that ruled for him were black. But there are no race issues in America. You're going to be shocked to find out at the same exact time that Genarlow Wilson got 10 years without the possibility of parole for hooking up with a sophomore, a white female teacher in the state of Georgia at the same time was found guilty of having a sexual relationship with a student, an underage student, actual child molestation. Genarlow Wilson, the black kid with a 3.2 GPA that might have gone to an Ivy League school, got 3,650 days. Now, guess how many days the white teacher who actually did child molestation got in the same state of Georgia? 90 days. 90 days. 90 days.
It's amazing.
90 days. The white woman gets 90 days. The black kid gets 10 long years. What is wrong with this country? What is wrong with the state of Georgia?
Go to
Don't move to Georgia. Don't go anywhere near Georgia. Ban Georgia until they let this kid out of jail.
It's WilsonAppeal.com. WilsonAppeal.com.
WilsonAppeal.com. And the people who are, the more you read, the more sickening the actions of Prosecutor Eddie Barker and the Douglas County DA David McDade are. They're the guys who can let him out right now, and they won't because they're sick. Snuffed this poor kid's future out, and instead of being in an Ivy League school now, he's sitting in a penitentiary in Georgia because, like any 17-year-old boy would have, he got oral sex from a girl who volunteered it. By the way, that's the other thing. It's not like the girl is claiming rape or sexual assault. She's like, no, I gave it to him. In fact, on the videotape, it was a party, and she had just given some other guy oral, and maybe this is what upset the jury or the prosecutors or whoever was heartless enough to actually bring this case to a trial. They had been drinking underage. Ooh, okay, well then prosecute them for that, and then they were having sex. oh, we can't have black people having sex in Georgia. So, and she had sex with one guy, and then she moved on to him. He's sitting on a couch, and this girl comes over and starts to give him, oral. Which 17-year-old boy in America would say no to that? Name one, and you know what? And then I'll go serve the 10 years with him.
Yeah.
Okay? Even those Christian kids who are like, I took a pledge, whatever. You bring a hot girl, so put him she comes and does that in his lap. What do you think is going to happen? And then they put him away. I mean, by the way, the prosecutor in this case, he apparently is one of those guys. ESPN has a really long article about this that I just read. And he's one of these guys that loves to be like, law and order! And he's got an American flag in his lapel. He's like, yeah, I got him! Who did you get, son of a bitch? Who did you get, tough guy prosecutor? Not only should they pass a law making sure that Genarlow Wilson gets out of jail, but they should fire that prosecutor. How was the state of Georgia served by imprisoning for 10 years and extinguishing, the good, promising career of a young person from Georgia for getting an oral from a sophomore when he's a senior in high school? How is that guy a sex offender? Come on, man. Is there no justice in America? By the way, one last thing on this. The girl's mother came to court and was like, look, let him go. He didn't do anything wrong. They were having a party, and yes, they were underage, and they shouldn't have done this stuff on a moral basis, but it isn't a crime, and this wasn't in any way non-consensual. Please let him go. Everybody's screaming it.
If you want to get involved in this case as well, you should. You can go to wilsonappeal.com, wilsonappeal.com, and you can see what's going on with the legal processes. There are all sorts of petitions you can sign, and if you want to get involved, you should. You can donate to the fund, email, and write the legislators. Go check it out.